I don't get how people are surviving. It's just credit cards. You know, that's a real quote from someone just trying to figure things out right now. And it hits hard, doesn't it? Because so many people feel that exact same way. Like you're just treading water or maybe even starting to sink.
So that's what we're going to do today in this explainer. We're going to dive deep into that feeling. We're calling this paycheck-to-paycheck nation, the high cost of financial anxiety. And we're going to try to unpack what is really going on with money in America today.
All right, here's our game plan. We'll start with that personal burden, the weight of money. Then we'll look at the hard data in America's financial snapshot. From there, we'll get into the mental toll this all takes, uncover the bigger cracks in the system, and finally, we'll explore some pathways to progress.
So, first up, the weight of money. And here's the most important thing to get right off the bat. If you're feeling squeezed, it is not just you, it's not in your head. This is a massive, widespread experience, and it's driven by the very real pressure of rising costs.
I mean, just listen to this. We work very, very hard, and we can't get ahead. That's the story you hear again and again and again. People talking about their car insurance, their property taxes, their grocery bills just going up and up and up. It feels like you're doing everything you're supposed to do, but at the end of the month, there's just nothing left.
And this is not just a feeling. It's a majority experience. Get this. Research from Ramsey Solutions shows that a full 52% of U.S. adults say they worry about their finances every single day. That's more than half the country carrying this exact same weight.
Okay, so let's shift gears from the feeling to the facts. What do the numbers actually tell us about what's going on? Let's take a look at America's financial snapshot.
Now, at first glance, this number from the Federal Reserve seems pretty good. Their latest survey found that 72% of adults are doing at least okay financially. But, and this is a big but, that number is actually hiding a worrying trend. It's down 6 full percentage points from its peak back in 2021. So the direction we're headed is down.
And here's where it gets even more complicated. Remember that Ramsey Solutions report? It found that 52% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So wait a minute, how can 72% be doing okay while at the same time 52% are living paycheck to paycheck? It kind of suggests that for a whole lot of people, doing okay means you are just barely scraping by with absolutely no wiggle room.
The data also shows us some really deep and persistent gaps. This chart from the Fed is pretty telling. While 82% of Asian adults and 76% of white adults say they're doing at least okay, that number drops to 68% for Black adults and all the way down to 61% for Hispanic adults. We're not talking about small differences here. These are major disparities in financial security. And this slide right here, wow, it illustrates one of the biggest paradoxes in all the data. On one hand, you have 72% of people saying, yeah, my own finances are okay. But then you ask them about the national economy, and only 22% say it's good or excellent. That is a 50-point gap. What is driving that huge disconnect between how we see ourselves and how we see the bigger picture?
Well, that question leads us right into our third section, the mental toll. Because let's be real, this isn't just about dollars and cents on a spreadsheet. It's about how these constant money worries seep into our heads and affect our psychological well-being.
And just so we're all on the same page, a study from the National Institutes of Health has a clinical term for this. They call it psychological distress. It's an emotional state of discomfort. Think symptoms of depression or anxiety that happens in response to a stressor. And for millions of us, that number one stressor is money.
The research makes one thing absolutely, undeniably clear. The more you worry about money, the higher your psychological distress. This connection isn't just a hunch someone has. It's measurable, it's statistically significant, and it's real.
And, this burden isn't felt equally. The research shows that this link, this connection between money worries and mental distress, is strongest for specific groups of people. We're talking about unmarried individuals, people who are unemployed, folks in lower-income households, and people who rent their homes instead of owning them. These are the groups who are most vulnerable to that mental weight of money.
So all of this brings us to a really critical shift in how we look at the problem. We're calling this section cracks in the system. Because, it's easy to say, oh, people just need to budget better. But we have to zoom out and look at the larger, systemic forces that actually create and make this financial insecurity even worse.
A report from the Aspen Institute gives us a really helpful way to think about this. They point to 4 key systemic problems. Number 1, a lot of people just can't get access to good, high-quality credit. 2, harmful and aggressive debt collection practices. 3, governments using fines and fees to make money. And 4, the one we all know, the crushing weight of student loans. See, these aren't personal failings. They are baked into the system.
Let's just zoom in on one of those for a second. The report talks about this vicious cycle where some local governments, Ferguson, Missouri was a famous example, actually rely on fines and fees to fund their city budget. Think about that. This can trap people in a spiral of debt, where the penalties for not paying make it even harder to ever pay off the original fine. It's a system that's literally working against itself.
Okay, so what on earth can be done about all this? That brings us to our final section, pathways to progress. And the good news here is that there are concrete ideas for tackling this, both from the top down with big systemic changes and from the bottom up with individual empowerment.
So let's look at that top-down approach first. The Aspen Institute, they highlight these real-world examples of local governments making actual systemic changes. Maryland, for instance, moved to eliminate using jail time as a tool for debt collection. And San Francisco worked to get rid of a whole bunch of local criminal justice fees that were hitting low-income folks the hardest. These are actual policy levers that can make a real, tangible difference.
But systemic change isn't the whole story. What about empowering individuals from the bottom up? For a long time, people have debated whether financial education really works. Well, a massive new analysis from the National Endowment for Financial Education, or NEFI, they looked at 76 different experiments, and they came to a super clear conclusion. Yes, it works.
And not only does it works way better than we thought. The study found that modern financial education programs are 3 to 5 times more effective at actually changing people's financial behavior than what older studies used to show. That is a huge leap forward in what we know.
And you can see the impact is real, right across several key financial behaviors. The NEFI study found positive, measurable effects on everything from just general financial knowledge to practical skills like budgeting, like saving, and managing credit. It turns out to be a really cost-effective tool for making real change in people's lives.
And so all of this leaves us with one last big question. We know that these huge systemic problems often need huge systemic solutions. But at the same time, we now know that financial education can powerfully empower individuals to better their own situation. So which lever do you pull first? Or maybe the real answer is you have to pull both at the exact same time.